Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining me today. I'm Valerie Evans, and I am talking to Pythia Serpentis. She is a forensic astrologer and is also the advice astrologer and can be found on adviceastrologer.com. Today, we're going to be analyzing a crime chart. Hi, Pythia.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Thanks for joining me. Many astrologers really want to see how forensic astrologers analyze a crime chart. So I thought maybe today we could talk about something that you're looking at, and I understand there's a crime that recently happened and that you were interested in and thought we'd give it a look. So how did you come across this crime chart?
Well, I run a page called Death in Astrology over on Facebook, and somebody posted this chart and told me kind of about what happened. It was a double homicide, husband and wife. Someone came in the house and just shot them. They even shot the dog. I was kind of interested because you don't really get a lot of double murder charts to look at. The basic rules I follow, which are mainly horary. Usually I'm looking for a missing person,
right,
and I'm looking at the ruler of the first house cusp. I'm looking to see where they're at. With a double homicide, I was kind of like, well, where do you begin to look for that, right?
Exactly.
They haven't apprehended a suspect yet, and I thought maybe it would be best to just examine the seventh house cusp because, and the moon. And I say the seventh house cusp because I think the ascendant, gives a good overview of like the immediate environment of the situation, and then we can look at who the thief is by kind of looking at the seventh house cusp. And then I said the moon because the moon rules fugitives, and this person's obviously a fugitive.
Oh, interesting. What do you want to look at first? You want to look at the seventh house cusp?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And that is in Aquarius at the 20-degree mark. The
moon, which represents fugitives, is actually in the seventh house if you use whole signs. It's really interesting to me that the moon would land there using whole signs. I've been kind of testing that out and playing around with it, seeing how things look as far as using that house system versus using another. With Reggio, the moon lands over here in the sixth house, which would be the 12th house of the suspect. It's also not far from Saturn. It's like technically conjoined with Saturn, but a few hours earlier there it was besieged between Pluto and Saturn. So that seemed interesting to me, and I wondered if it implied maybe there was more than one person involved.
And really, I should probably do a quick summary that this is a farm murder, which is what they call it in South Africa. And it's a serious problem. The government has addressed it. Some people call it a racial issue. The government believes it's just, financial and it's burglaries, but, it's a real problem. And so in this case, this couple, I guess they went out, the perpetrator or perpetrators got into the house, hid, but you're saying basically that you see just a lot of people there. Or maybe more than one as far as the murders.
Yeah, more than one, I would imagine, because earlier the moon was besieged, and it's completely possible that they were already in the home hiding out. I mean, the 12th house of the suspect has everything in it, including the 4th house ruler, which represents the home,
Exactly.
The 4th house would, and then Jupiter rules the 4th house. So that was really interesting. I kind of ended up focusing more on environment. So that was I focused on that, and then I focused on Arabic lots. One of the interesting things about it is that the lot of marriage, or the part of marriage, is with Neptune. Now, we don't usually use outer planets with Arabic lots or parts. They just weren't meant to be used that way, I don't think. But I thought it was really interesting that the planet of deception, lies, etc., and drugs, was sitting on that 1 degree. 1 degree. I chose the 530 chart because there's a lot of struggle picking the appropriate time. They do have the time of the gunshot. Apparently there is video footage, according to the person who posted this on my page, who knew the couple.
Really?
And is pretty shook up, obviously.
I can imagine.
Yeah. I'm not sure how they knew each other, but how sad. So I read in one of my books a long time ago, I think William Lilly wrote it, and I think it was in Christian Astrology, and that the stars are sympathetic to the plight of mankind, and they will answer mankind when he has a question. So I chose the discovery of the bodies, and chose to read that time, because everybody had to be thinking, like, what happened here?
Yeah,
Who did
absolutely.
this?
Right.
So I felt like, when the gunshot went off, nobody even knew it was happening except the family. But, when they found the body, we've got the police wondering. I'm sure the neighbors were wondering what was going on. So a lot of people were wondering, and I feel like there's power in numbers.
Definitely. And now, is there something, now when I saw this chart, something screamed out at me. Was there anything like a theme or anything that you saw?
These guys were sitting on something pretty valuable. I think it was in the house, and I think those people came there to get that. Drugs or an item, I'm not sure.
Interesting. Now, the sun ruling the victim or victims, it's in Virgo. So to me, since that's ruled by Mercury, maybe something that has to do with work or something that's small. And another
or a
couple
neighbor or coworkers.
Right. Exactly. When I see 20 degrees, the Scorpio or Mars degree, that might be revenge. And with Leo, that could be family revenge, or, what's really interesting to me is, who is that female? Is it just money, represented by Venus, or is it a female? Is it a hidden enemy that's a female? And, and is there deception there, with her aspecting Neptune?
I'm glad you brought that up. That's very interesting. And one thing that kind of spurred some thoughts for me when you mentioned it is that Venus actually rules the second house of possessions and valuables, doesn't it?
Right, it does. It definitely makes the case that it was valuable.
Taurus, it looks like, rules the 9th house, huh? And it looks like Uranus is right up there at the top. So I just wonder what that 9th house could represent. What do you think?
Well, 9th house is, a big road. Whenever I see the 9th, I think of a highway, or I think of, a school, or it's usually places to me, a name of a road. But so when I see Uranus, though, at the top of a chart, you see that a lot, though, in these crimes, don't you? Where something just happens that is spur of the moment. It's absolutely shocking, but it's usually out in the open. So, but I guess because it's aspecting that 4th, it makes sense that it was the shocking part was in that house. But what do you think about the 9th there?
Well, I was thinking, after you said what you said, it kind of just like dinged in my head. I was like, oh, the 9th house rules publishing, and this is very shocking news.
Yes. Shocking news to the world. Whenever I see Black Moon Lilith, I've studied that quite a bit, and it's always like it seems to be a knee-jerk reaction, and with a knife, or with the weapon, which would be Mars there. And what was left behind, I always look to the South Node. So
let me quick look at my chart, because so the 8th house is ruled by Mars and Aries. You got Mars in there already. it's kind of like in a shadow period too at that time, I think. I don't have an ephemeris to look at, but
Right.
but yeah, so gosh, it looks like it's opposite Juno too. That's interesting. What do you think that means?
Revenge, and then with the Mars, anger. Whenever I see
Inheritance too.
yes, inheritance, insurance.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know what to make of it, but what's interesting now, what do you see with the seventh house there? And not to jump around, but
No, that's fine.
with Aquarius is ruled by Saturn, but do you also look at Saturn and Uranus?
Often I do.
Okay.
I focus more on the traditional 9 planets, but I mean, there's Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto always have something to say, and a lot of the time asteroids do too. So,
Right.
what's the point of ignoring more information? It couldn't hurt, you know.
Yeah. But 9 times out of 10, when I see something in the 12th house, it is a person. And I really think that that's a female that has something to do with this. You know, I don't like Jupiter there in that 5th house of family. You know, what does that mean? You know, you don't want to be saying that the family did anything, but there could be a family involved, you know, that could have something to do with it.
Another thing that's really interesting about the moon is that it's with big star Altair.
Okay.
And like I was saying earlier, the moon rules fugitives. And so it's always going to also give that overview of the situation, what's happening. So I don't know. I felt it was worth checking out, and it represents sudden but fleeting wealth. And I wondered, you know, if there was some sort of embezzlement at play, or, you know, again, the robbery theory. Yeah, it can also hint toward like emotional sensitivity or imbalances.
Okay.
And, you know, that's interesting to me because the word lunatic came from Luna.
Right.
You know, so, you know, maybe we're looking at someone with mental health problems, but that doesn't help much.
Right. I mean, the suspect or the perpetrator would have mental health problems.
Yeah, and anybody who could do that is an awful person.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned, not to interrupt, but you had mentioned with the 4th house, you know, with Sagittarius there, that means to search. So it almost, to me, with the South Node, maybe they left something behind while they were searching for something. So, and that is aspect the 8th house. So they were searching for some kind of, I don't know. If it was aspecting Mercury, I would say they were searching for documents.
You're right, or books or paperwork.
Yeah, but
Mercury things.
I mean,
medication maybe.
Medication or drugs. It's aspecting Neptune.
Yeah, I think one time you and me were talking, you know, about the different ways we both do astrology, because we've got our own methods and they both work. They're both great. But you said something about like when the South Node is with like, say, Mars, it could represent a weapon being left behind, right?
Absolutely. Or blood.
Okay. Yeah, Mars does rule blood. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and if it's aspecting, you know, the ruler of the 7th, then it could be that the perpetrator left the blood behind. So you can kind of connect it, if you know, once you analyze it. The first step that I go through is what happened, but then I also think, okay, what can help law enforcement? You know, who represents the investigators, who represents the police, and what, you know, maybe I can see some trines or sextiles to certain things where they might be able to pick up on if they're in there and analyzing how they can solve this case. So what I would do is I would look at Jupiter, which represents investigators, and I would see how it connects to Mercury and
information,
documents, cell phones. And then I also see it, aspecting Neptune pretty well.
Typically when I do this, I always first start out by looking at houses and the rulers, the planetary rulers of the houses, just, the signs on the cusps, get a feel for the environment, get a feel for the type of people they might have been. You can look and see that Jupiter will describe their home environment or family relationships. And so will the moon, so that's interesting.
But everything else, it seems like, for instance, that female, that opposition, I don't see investigators being really, especially, and then if you look at Mars too, which would represent the police, again, not aspecting that female very well. So it seems like it might be difficult to find who actually did this, whoever's in that 12th house. So that's how I would read that. When you say that the moon represents the fugitive, yet the moon can also represent the victim too, is that right?
Only if they're missing.
Okay, that's good.
If they're missing, you would definitely, it rules runaways, it rules fugitives. When a person goes missing, we can't say that they're not a runaway unless there's, probable cause to believe that something went wrong. So I always look at the moon and kind of hope they're out there alive somewhere running.
Definitely, yeah.
Another thing I wanted to mention about the 7th house cusp and this suspect is that, Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius and it's retrograde. I think that means he'll return to the area or come out of hiding. Eventually the truth is going to come out when Saturn goes direct.
I think that, we covered a lot here as far as, the ruling planets and, where they're positioned as well as retrograde planets and then the degrees. But I think this chart really does give us some clues as to maybe secrets and things that are going to have to come out in order for them to, to solve this. I mean, 19 degrees is a couple. That's the Libra degree. So that could be the couple's secrets. So, and that female knew about them. But, all the things that I've been talking about are of an extremely personal nature in that it was a personal crime. It wasn't just a random act.
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
I don't think so either. I think that they knew this person very well. This person was there to get something, and this person's going to probably benefit from their death. So, like usual, look at the person who gains from something so horrible.
Definitely.
Real good.
And to decide on whether they actually knew the person or not, is that one of the first things that you look at?
A lot of the time, I look at the planets, what the houses they rule, where they're placed. That's always a start. But even before I start doing that, I always check for Arabic lots and fixed stars because they're the easiest and fastest thing you can use. And from my experience using fixed stars, they tell a story. Each one has a story. It has its own mythology. And you'll often find that mythology will play out in the life of the person you're trying to find out more about and in the case. So.
Well said.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, I guess we're out of time, but thank you so much. And you can be found on adviceastrologer.com. And anything else you'd like to say or plug?
I would love to say thanks for having me on. I had so much fun talking to you. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
So thanks again. And hopefully we can chat soon.